Nature is made possible by public television stations, your gas company, and America's natural gas industry, developing new ways to use clean gas energy to generate electricity and fuel vehicles to help meet America's goal for cleaner air. And by Siemens, a leader in electronics and electrical engineering, 27,000 employees, 47 manufacturing facilities. The name is Siemens.
Hi, I'm George Page for Nature, and I'm driving along State Route 130 on the big island of Hawaii. But we seem to have a problem up ahead, and this is as far as we can go. Park rangers in our national parks have all sorts of problems to meet and solve. In Yellowstone, for example, it's keeping grizzlies and people apart. But here in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the Big Island, the problem is where to build a road. And this is why. Just the most recent road blockage by a lava flow from Kilauea, the world's most active volcano. In truth, this flow is a relatively small demonstration of the tremendous power of volcanoes. And this time on Nature, we're going to see some of the most spectacular film ever made of volcanic activity. Film shot by a daring, some would say foolhardy, French couple, Maurice and Katia Krafft. For the past 20 years, the Kraffts have been chasing volcanoes all over the world, constantly defying one of the most powerful forces in all of nature.
Volcanoes and life on Earth will always be linked. The atmosphere we breathe, the crust of the Earth we live on, the waters of the oceans and rivers all have their origins in volcanoes. For our ancestors, these fires in the Earth were frightening yet fascinating, sometimes to be worshipped, always to be feared. Even today, only a few scientists accept the dangerous challenge of studying volcanic eruptions. One who has is Frenchman Maurice Krafft. He travels the world searching for eruptions with another volcanologist, his wife Katia. What follows is their film record of some of the amazing events witnessed during 20 years of volcano watching. the vineyards of Alsace in northeastern France. It's where the Kraffts make their home. Although Alsace rocked to the roar of guns and the impact of shells in 2 world wars, it's been a long time since this part of Europe shook to a major volcanic eruption. Some 16 million years, in fact. Volcanoes have been the major preoccupation of the Kraffts ever since they were school children. At the age of 8, Maurice was already making models of volcanic craters. He met Katia at Strasbourg University, where they both graduated as geologists. In 1968, the Kraffts founded their own Center for Volcanology and began recording volcanic events on film.
Formerly, I was studying gases and taking samples, but now not so much because I prefer to observe, like Maurice, the eruptions going. And the other thing very important, I think, is to take pictures, the photos, and this is my job.
Maurice looks after the cinematography. By lecturing and writing books on volcanoes, they generate funds for expeditions to some of the 20 or more volcanoes that erupt each year. Of the 500 or so active volcanoes in the world, so far they've trodden the flanks of more than 300, a remarkable achievement given the remoteness of many eruptions. But as students back in 1966, before the world became their volcanic oyster, their horizons were limited to Europe, to the volcanoes of southern Italy. The first they visited was this, the legendary ancestor of all volcanoes, Volcano Fassa. The Romans believed that their god of fire, Vulcan, had his forge here. As undergraduates, the Kraffts and their friends had only the most basic equipment for their early researches. Collecting the mix of gases vented by the volcano came as a rude awakening. Sulfurous vapors with chlorine, carbon dioxide, and lots of steam added to the general unpleasantness. The effect of volcanic gases on trousers led to hasty improvisations. Stromboli, also in southern Italy and active for at least 2,000 years, was their first erupting volcano. Collecting minerals and gases from here was potentially lethal. Helmets were necessary protection from falling lava blocks.
When you hear about an eruption, you say, okay, I will make gas analysis, take temperature, and this and that. And when you arrive on the place, the show is completely different. You know, the volcano is making the show he wants to make, and it's never the show you are waiting for. So generally, the activity is so strong, is that you just drop your instrument, and you look at the volcano, and maybe you even fell in love with the eruption. And then sometimes, often, you forget to make the observations, when it's really very fascinating, you know. You can forget to work on it. This happened often to me, and I like to forget to make the scientific work and just to look at the power of nature. It's really fantastic.
On January 23, 1973, Maurice and Katia, now professional volcanologists, were called to southern Iceland. A column of ash nearly 5 miles high marked the port of Heimaey. An extinct volcano had suddenly erupted after thousands of years of silence, forcing the evacuation of 5,000 inhabitants.
To see all those houses with light on, you know, with curtains, with dishes on the tables, and so everything was ready, but nobody there. It was like being in a sort of theater with a big scenery ready for a show, but nobody's there for the show, and just the volcano behind.
Undaunted by this natural drama of burning ash and lava flows that threatened to engulf the port, the Icelanders worked round the clock to evacuate people's possessions. Within a week, 100 houses were burned or buried. For the volcanologists, the challenge was to get close to the eruption.
In fact, a volcano is like a wild animal. He's blind, he don't see you. And you are a sort of crazy doctor and you want to understand what is his stomach problem exactly at the moment. So first, you have to stay far, long time, and to look at his habits, you know, his behavior, where is the block falling, and so on and so on. We are not kamikaze, just jumping in a volcano, not really.
A major problem was the huge fall of ash.
We went in an hotel to put our things there, and the owner of the hotel said, "Oh, don't pay for the room. My hotel will be destroyed tomorrow." And in the evening, we went in the building through the main door. And next morning, we went out through the first floor. You know, during the night, 5 meters of ashes fell on this building.
Another threat to the salvage workers came from the carbon dioxide gas given off by the volcanic ash. It led to the only fatality in over 5 months of eruption. By mid-February, lava flows narrowed the harbor entrance to only 100 feet. Without access to the sea, Iceland's biggest fishing port would have no future. In desperate hope, firefighting boats turned their hoses on the lava front in an effort to cool it enough to stop its flow. Barriers of solid material began to build up, but the volcano continued to send molten lava flowing over the barriers. The fish processing plants and the port itself were threatened. A final battle was joined. 43 giant pumps were airlifted in from the United States. 19 miles of pipe were positioned to launch an attack on the lava, still advancing almost 20 feet a day. "4,000 tons of seawater an hour were pumped onto the advancing lava wall and to points far behind the flow's front, creating a series of internal barriers of cooled lava. Over a period of weeks, as the lava was hit by the water, its temperature fell from 1800 to 215 degrees, and it solidified. Eventually, the lava wall created a barrier, in places 130 feet high. After 3 weeks of struggle, the port was saved. For the first time in history, a big lava flow had been stopped. Eldfell, the fire mountain, gave its last gasp 157 days after it started. Almost all of the inhabitants of Heimaey decided to return to rebuild the 400 houses lost. Today, Eldfell volcano sits quietly brooding over the town restored to life. Some good did come out of the disaster. The houses now have central heating powered by the still hot lava. But the greatest irony is that the once threatening lava flow actually improved the shelter offered by Heimaey's harbor. Paricutin in Mexico, another volcano that suddenly burst into life. It rose out of farmland, building a cone 500 feet high in a week. After a year, it had reached 1,000 feet. In the process, the lava it ejected drove 6,000 people from their homes. On the anniversary of the eruption, the former villagers returned to where their homes lie buried near the now silent volcano of Paricutin. In places, former fields, orchards, and pine forest lie 800 feet deep under the lava. Only the church tower marks where thousands of people once lived. In contrast to those sudden explosions, Etna on the island of Sicily has been continually active for thousands of years. Initially flowing at almost 20 miles an hour and with a temperature of 2,000 degrees, the smooth-surfaced lava is known by the Hawaiian name Pahoehoe, meaning satin-like. Farther from its source, the lava cools, loses gases, thickens, and slows. It may then form a mass of angular, jagged points, known as A'a lava, a name the Hawaiians coined after walking barefoot over these sharp rocks. In 1983, a fissure opened high on the south side of Etna. Within a few days, some restaurants and hotels in the skiing area of Sapienza were engulfed. By a miracle, some remained intact, though inaccessible. Above the resort, part of the ski lift system had almost disappeared. Cones of lava on the edge of the fissure now replace the ski run markers. It will be many years before downhill skiers use this particular trail. But the lava that brings misfortune to the skiers is to others' advantage.
They take a lump of lava out, and then they make ashtrays in lava and so on with souvenir of Etna and so, you know. They have molds, and they put the melted lava in it, and they make those crazy things. And those are sold to the tourists. This is a very old habit. I mean, they have done this in Vesuvius for years. They have done this in the 18th century, taking some lava and then pushing it together and making with some molds, making, for instance, a sign this year and this eruption. And even if you ask, they can put your name specifically in the lava and so, you know, the melted things. And this is a big business.
A few hundred yards below the souvenir makers, the wall of crumbling lava, called clinker, moves onward. Its deceptive appearance masks an inner temperature of 1,650 degrees Fahrenheit.
We arrived just in time to see the lava coming behind this big building, this big school, and the whole building was really eaten by the lava flow. And then suddenly, in, I would say, 1 or 2 seconds, the whole building collapsed, and 15 minutes after, nothing was left. The whole thing was covered, and it was quite a big building, very impressive. To see how a lava flow is eating something is very impressive. When you see a lion eating an animal, it's nothing compared to a volcano that is eating a big building.
With concern mounting for the safety of the rest of the resort, the authorities agreed to fund an experiment. The volcanologists proposed building barriers of ash and clinker to divert the flow away from habitation. Hundreds of men raised massive earthworks. Then higher up the volcano, the lava channel was dynamited. A combination of hard work and luck paid off. The lava changed course, but the threat now shifted to small farms and orchards.
A lot of population is living around Etna, and the concentration of population in the lower slope of Etna is fantastic because the soil is very fertile again. So when those lava flows are going down, of course they destroy a lot of things, but they don't kill people. you know. It's a dangerous volcano, but not for people. I remember I have seen a lava flow coming on a building. The building was overwhelmed, completely destroyed. And the farmer was nearby, on a hill, looking at his home destroyed. And then, when I went back at the same place 2 years ago, there was a new house on the lava flow that destroyed the house some years before. So people are living with this volcano, and in fact, they respect the volcano. They like their volcano.
Like it or not, 4 months passed and nearly $5 million were spent before the eruption petered out. Volcanoes have always inspired awe, and each culture has created its own myths to explain them. Some 2,000 years ago, Plato speculated that hot winds under the earth made contact with a burning river to throw up volcanoes. Today, the theory of plate tectonics gives us a more accurate, but no less colorful version of volcanic origins. Although the surface of the earth appears seamless, the oceans and continents are actually riding on rigid plates which float on a plastic inner layer of semi-molten rock. Convection currents in this hot underlying layer keep the plates in constant motion over the Earth's surface, causing them to collide or pull apart. Where plates collide, as the Nazca and South American plates do, one is usually forced beneath the other. The descending plate is heated and melts, forming magma or molten rock, which rises to the surface. 80% of volcanoes are formed in this way. In the depths of the ocean basins, miles below the surface, are the mid-oceanic ridges. This is where the process of sea floor spreading takes place. Here, plates are pulled apart. Hot magma from the Earth's interior wells up to fill the gap, creating underwater volcanoes and extending the plate's edges. Hawaii's volcanoes are among the very few found in the middle of a plate. Called hotspot volcanoes, they form where a stationary plume of magma rises unusually close to the Earth's surface. This fixed plume burns a series of holes through the plate traveling over it, forming a string of islands. The Hawaiian island chain created by this kind of hotspot stretches for 1,500 miles. Although our growing understanding of the Earth's hidden inner dynamics helps explain why volcanoes exist, our ability to predict eruptions and control their side effects is terribly limited. Leading contributors to this area of research are the Japanese. Surrounded by more than 200 volcanoes, 70 of them active, they have developed elaborate methods for surviving in their shadow. "35,000 people live beneath Usu volcano. An eruption in 1977 piled up huge amounts of ash in the crater and on its sides. 200 barriers have been built to hold back the ash, which turns into a lethal mud flow after heavy rains. Between the people and the volcano stands a whole range of defenses which filter out the rocks and trees carried down by the mud flows. When debris hits these pressure pads, alarms sound and remote-controlled cameras are switched on, enabling scientists to monitor the flows and assess the risks to the villages below. Around Japan, there are some 22 observatories keeping volcano watches. It's a big responsibility since millions of tourists visit active volcanoes each year. Bomb-proof bunkers line the rim of Aso volcano. At the first sign of danger, visitors can run to them for cover. In the last big eruption here, an armor-plated tourist bus was destroyed, though only 3 people were injured. But that was at 7 in the morning. A few hours later, and there might have been thousands of victims. But volcanoes are not entirely a story of doom and disaster. The Japanese find bathing in volcanic ash a soothing treatment for rheumatism. Communal bathhouses, such a part of the Japanese scene, are heated by volcanic sources for free. A dozen power stations, too, driven by underground reservoirs of steam, are already operating in Japan. 15 other countries also use this free source of energy. If ways can be found to tap more of the energy locked up in the world's volcanoes, then concern about fossil and nuclear fuels could be lessened. Central Africa, the frontier between Zaire and Rwanda. A chain of active volcanoes marks the western arm of Africa's Great Rift. Here, the continent is literally being torn apart by the movement of tectonic plates. 11,500 feet above sea level, one of the craters, Nyiragongo, contained in 1973 a fabled lake of boiling lava. That year, the Krafts decided to make their first African expedition.
We went on Nyiragongo, so you have to climb the volcanoes. That's not so long, 3, 4, 5 hours. And then it starts, because you arrive at the mouth of the volcano, and you have to go in the mouth of the volcano. So you are going down a cliff, not so high, 300 meters, but very bad rock. All kind of fumaroles went through and so on. It's not strong, it's terrible. So we went down, and we stayed 15 days on a platform that was 300 meters lower than the rim. And we stayed on this platform for, 2 weeks. So it was like being on the lid of a pressure cooker, a very big one with magma inside. And this was a fantastic experience.
The soil is trembling, you have all these noises around you, like if you are in the bowl of the earth, you see, really. And you are nothing. And this is very nice to feel, you see, to be just nothing when you are near a volcano.
The lava lake marked the top of a huge column of magma held inside the throat of the volcano at enormous pressure. 4 years later, on the 10th of July, 1977, the volcano tore apart. 5 great fissures opened. The lake of boiling lava drained over the surrounding countryside.
The magma went out from the flank, from the lower flank of the volcano. And the lava flows were going very, very fast. Coming out from fissures, they were probably running at 60 to 70 kilometers per hour. And this was in the morning where a lot of people were on the road going for the market, local market of Goma. And we think that around 100 people has been catched by the lava flow and were really, overwhelmed by the lava flow and so on. And even we found even elephant molds later. There was a group of small elephants and they had no time to escape. And so the lava went around those elephants And now you can see perfectly the elephant molds. Even the trunk, feet, everything is in the mold of the elephant. And this is probably one of the only basaltic activity with fluid lava that killed really quite a lot of people. Very unusual eruption, but not long, just 1 hour. We arrived, I would say, 2 days after everything was over.
For 5 years, the crater in which Katia and Maurice had pitched their tent remained silent. Then, as suddenly as the lava lake emptied, it began to return. Through 2 great blowholes over 825 feet in diameter, jets of lava pumped more than 200 feet high. Within 3 months, the new lake rose 1,800 feet. Today, around Niaragongo, the country holds its breath. When will the lake burst again? Indonesia has the dubious distinction of possessing 140 active volcanoes, the greatest concentration in the world. In compensation for the hazards they pose, volcanic ashes enrich the soil. Sometimes 3 crops of rice a year can be harvested from these highly fertile fields. But as the population grows, people are forced to live closer and closer to the rumbling giants. In April 1982, a series of explosions shattered the calm of Galunggung volcano. For hundreds of thousands of people, the start of 9 months of hell. By mid-June, numerous eruptions had occurred. Then, nearly 100 miles away and 36,000 feet high, a jumbo jet flew into the drifting ash. The engines failed. With only 6 minutes left before hitting the sea, the crew restarted their engines. Although disaster was averted in the air, life on the ground got more difficult.
This activity was very spectacular because you had a big ash column going up every 3, 4, 5 days. And those ash columns were going at 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers high. And each eruption, each explosion was 3, 4, 5, 6 hours long. So this big ash column went up, and then a cloud of ash, of black ash, came slowly on us. And then in 10 minutes, everything was completely dark. Everything was dark, really.
Years will pass before this thick layer of ash can benefit the soil. Meanwhile, the rice crop is destroyed. Within a few miles of the volcano, destruction is complete. Superheated clouds of gases and ash called glowing clouds swept down the mountain at hundreds of miles per hour, killing everything in their path.
It's really something very dangerous. But it was so fascinating to look at it and to try to be close to see better what is happening, that we don't worry about death or so, because it was so fantastic to see that you just forget, okay, it can happen, but we'll try.
Glowing clouds have killed more than 30,000 people this century. Fortunately, the villagers here took heed of warning tremors. They fled before their homes were subjected to a hail of burning rocks, ash, and gases. Despite the layers of volcanic debris, those with houses left standing fought to protect them through the recurring eruptions.
When the sun is coming again, then people are taking all those ashes away, and the life is going again. It's really incredible how they find this in some way normal, you know. They had it so often during these eruptions that was more than 9 months long, that it was quite something like a shower of rain, you know. Rain shower, here they have ash showers, and okay, why not?
After 50 eruptions in under a year, the gathering ash posed a huge threat. With the onset of tropical storms, rivers of liquid mud would sweep the countryside. Thousands of farmers, unable to work their fields, were employed on building dikes and diversionary walls. They remembered the stories of the 1822 eruption when 114 villages were swept away. It's estimated that this eruption of Galunggung cost Indonesia $120 million, with 30,000 villagers being forced permanently from their homes. Massive mud flows did bury the countryside. But having been warned by volcanologists of the danger, the people around the volcano escaped with their lives. Papandahan, the southernmost of Indonesia's volcanoes, has a murderous past. 200 years ago, it claimed 3,000 lives and destroyed 40 villages in one day. Today, it sleeps fitfully, exhaling a poisonous mixture of corrosive gases. The Krafts traveled here to measure the concentration of sulfuric acid in the clouds of steam that rise from the fumaroles or cracks in the rocks. Groundwater circulating close to the hot magma below expands rapidly as it turns into steam. If trapped within the mountain, the pressure could trigger an explosive eruption. But if it finds an escape, it's dangerous only to those brave few who venture into the acrid mist. Yellow curtains of sulfur are deposited by the escaping steam. The sulfuric and carbonic acids turn the local atmosphere into a burning fog. This has destroyed the forests that used to cover the crater slopes. Animals sometimes wander into the pockets of stagnant gases. Trapped in these valleys of death, they are overcome. While in Indonesia, the Krafts visited more than 100 volcanoes. After 8 months of exploration, they reached an extraordinary volcanic lake. No boiling lava here, but its innocent appearance is deceptive. Kawah Ijan, or the green crater, contains a corrosive soup composed of dilute sulfuric and hydrochloric acids. Fumaroles vent reeking volcanic gases into the air, and oozing from the earth comes hot liquid sulfur, a valuable mineral that can be gathered, but at great human cost.
There, near the crater, you have people that are digging the sulfur. There is a sulfur mine, in fact, but very, very primitive sulfur mine. You know, those people are fantastic people, because they carry 60 kilos or so of sulfur on their back, and they have to walk 30 kilometers with this on their back. And the money they receive is really nothing. And you see children 12 years old or 10 years old working there. It's absolutely awful, you know. The conditions are very bad.
There was consternation and amazement among the miners as their French visitors launched a boating expedition onto this reservoir of acids.
We had an old rubber boat. We bought in Paris, you know, in a second-hand shop of old rubber boat. We bought it for really, I would say, at this time, for 50 pounds, not more. Very old thing. So we inflated this rubber boat and we went on the lake. And it was really fantastic, you know, just to be on this lake of acid. And so we had also a cable with a bottle to see how deep was the lake and to take samples of the acid of the lake at different depths.
100 feet, 200 feet, 500 feet. Each sample they brought up was more concentrated, and each sample took them farther from the safety of the shore. 650 feet now. So far, the rubber boat has withstood the acid bath, suffering less than they were. Suddenly, the lake claimed a victim. Acid ate through the cable holding the collecting bottle, and it vanished. Their bizarre voyage was over. To a geologist, the present is the key to the past. One such key is the volcano Le Piton de la Fournaise. It's on Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean. Except for Hawaii's Kilauea, it's the most active on Earth.
Reunion is an old friend of mine, one of my best friends. It's a volcano that is active around once a year, and very nice activities. And I know about those eruptions immediately. I would say if an eruption starts, in less than 5 minutes, I will know it here in France, through telephone or telex and so. And then I rush there because there are flights every day. And I like this volcano, yes, very much. And even we will make a museum of this volcano. I fell in love with Piton de la Fournaise volcano. Yeah.
I think that the biggest risk is to go in a car, because this is a very dangerous place, you see. But it depends. When you are near an explosive volcano, the chance must be 50%. It's easier to escape from a lava flow than from a glowing cloud. Lava flow is going 40 kilometers per hour, so maybe we can escape if it's not too long and too fast. But with nuées ardentes, glowing clouds, means 300 kilometers per hour, you cannot escape. It will go too fast. It will kill you.
These flows of molten basalt posed no threat to humans on Reunion, but in their rush downhill, they left a trail of devastation. At the end of its journey, the lava meets the sea. Water flashes into steam as it hits the molten rock. New land forms and cools, only to be pounded and eroded by the sea in a process as old as the world. The entire Pacific Ocean is ringed by volcanoes. The northernmost part of this ring of fire is made up of the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. Augustine, an island 175 miles southwest of Anchorage, is the most active. It has exploded into violent eruptions once a decade for the past 30 years. Maurice and Katia traveled here in 1976 to document the 13 major eruptions that took place during January of that year. A thick carpet of ash was left behind by the burning avalanches of steam and pulverized rock. At times, the cloud of ash towered 8 miles high, sandblasting the paint from passing jets. Winds carried this high-flung ash halfway round the world. To their home in Alsace, the Kraffts have brought many volcanic curiosities. They now have a museum of mementos. This is a natural cast of a tree that was engulfed by a lava flow on the big island of Hawaii. Lava from the volcano the Kraffts have great affection for. The Hawaiian landscape is truly that of a volcanic giant. Evidence of lava flows, old and new, is everywhere. Gigantic fissures slice across the land, marking the places where magma, the compressed mixture of gases and molten rock, finally emerged as lava. The forces that have built this volcanic island are colossal. It's an undersea mountain rising 32,000 feet from the ocean floor. Maurice and Katia are following in the footsteps of the many scientists who, since 1912, have made the Hawaiian Volcano Center a base for their investigations. It was here, to their great satisfaction, that for the first time the Kraffts saw a new fissure opening face to face.
What was wonderful was that we have seen really the beginning of a basaltic eruption. And this is fantastic because we had curtains of fires kilometers long. And this was in the early morning with the best light you can have, you see. So it was really fantastic.
This was my birthday. You know? It was a fantastic present. I will never have a present like this again. The fault system was 15 kilometers long, and you had curtains of fire all along this fault that formed, and big lava flows coming down. It's just the blood of the earth that is going down the mountain, but a lot of blood, really. I have seen so much that now I can take some risk, because even if it stopped tomorrow, it don't matter. I have seen enough. So all the things I'm looking at now, and I am only interested in volcanic eruptions, you know. some people, some friends, and volcanic eruptions. I am very specialized. But I would say that if tomorrow I die on a volcano, not important. I have seen enough. And that's why I am very relaxed now when I go to see a volcano. So that's why some volcanologists and friends are considering me as really completely crazy. But I like to be crazy because life is crazy. And a volcano is crazy, so everything is crazy. And if it can stay crazy for many years, it's okay. At the meantime, I want to understand how volcanoes are working. Of course, you cannot really jump on the lava and go down the lava flow. That's my dream. I would like to make a canoe in Titan or something like that, you know, and to go down a lava flow in a canoe. That must be fantastic. Taking temperatures and taking viscosity measurements and so on in the flow when going down. If we can find a company that will pay for the canoe, I will go in the canoe to go down the lava flow.
It's beautiful, it's aesthetic, it's also powerful, very, very powerful. Like a sea when you have a storm or so, it's the same. And it's because you are so small and no more something important that it's wonderful too.
I would say if I had died without looking at a volcanic eruption, I had died like an idiot, I would say. I would say that everybody has to see a volcanic eruption from near, and I cannot live without volcanic eruption.
Nature is made possible by public television stations, by Siemens, a leader in high-technology electronics and electrical engineering. Nationwide, 27,000 Americans in 400 locations. The name is Siemens. And by your gas company and America's gas industry, developing ways to use gas more efficiently for more than 160 million people across America.
The Volcano Watchers is one in a series from nature. Coming soon, be sure and look for rainforest and Hawaii. For more information, call 1-800-776-8300.